it doesn't matter what you are. It matters that you know what you are and that you're embodying it. Then you're going to be as successful as you wish. And also, like I call die happy, like die feeling fulfilled and purposed, because you knew that you were working on the right things while you were here.
Now, we all know that introverts are the most magical of unicorns. But what if you could really understand your own unique unicorn energy and make it work with the rest of your team? That's what we're talking about in the podcast today with the amazing brand strategist, Jen Kem. Jen specializes in launching innovative ideas with high-performing teams, which she's done for 2 decades. Her unicorn innovation model has been used by brands like Oprah, no big deal, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Oracle, as well as numerous New York Times bestselling authors, keynote speakers, business leaders, and thought leaders. Jen's new book, Unicorn Team, the 9 leadership types you need to launch your big ideas with speed and success, is like an innovation playbook on how to build the most collaborative, harmonious, and motivated team so that you can achieve extraordinary results. And it all comes down to 3 core energies that every single one of us possess in different ratios. And that is the visionizer, the strategizer, and the mobilizer. Jen's developed this leadership framework based on 2 decades of corporate and entrepreneurial experience. And she truly believes that understanding your leadership type helps you to optimize energy, communication, and create amazing team dynamics. It also explains why introverts can excel as leaders and entrepreneurs when we lean into and leverage our natural strengths. Now, this conversation is really timely and important because everything is changing so quickly in the workplace, in business, with AI and automation. It means that there are definitely more threats, but also more opportunities for us. And when we can work within our strengths, within our zone of genius, it really helps us to preserve that creativity, innovation, and that human element that always will need to be present in business and in the workplace. And it allows us to focus on doing the right things so that we are avoiding burnout, which is, of course, a priority for us as introverts. So Jen herself, despite being incredibly sociable and chatty and articulate and all of the things, is a hardcore introvert, running no less an 8-figure business and raising a family. Therefore, she knows what it's like to have to own her energy. Stay tuned till the end so you can hear her share her number 1 tip for doing so that she can keep performing at her best. So I hope you enjoy this chat as much as I enjoyed connected with Jen. And I hope that you can start to spot maybe your own unicorn energy type as we're talking about them. Jen, thank you so much for joining me today on The Ambitious Introvert. I am very excited because my audience love a personality test. We love to take a test. We love to understand more about ourselves, our teams, how we can bring our best and really what I would call our unique energy to the game, but what you would call unicorn energy.
Yes. I get it because I'm an introvert too. Surprising for most, but I am absolutely an introvert. I always like to say I'm an introvert posing as an extrovert to the world, but really I am truly an introvert too.
That happens a lot when I have people like yourself on who have a big platform, a large audience. You are very visible. And I think people equate that with, oh, you must love being in the spotlight and you must be out there on social media like 24/7. And actually what most people like yourself say is like, no, I'm actually like a big card carrying introvert.
Yes, very much so.
So you've been in business for many years and you've had many iterations of what you do. What led you to really thinking and realizing that the unicorn energy was the thing for teams?
Yeah, well, it's a long winding yarn, but I started out my career in corporate, in a traditional job, and rose very quickly from my beginnings in advertising all the way up to really becoming in charge of what we call, a go-to market specialist whose job was to bring new innovative ideas to market. And so a couple of those things, many of us, what I call take for granted today, including things like video streaming, including technology that we're using right now to record this podcast, as well as, DoorDash, which is home delivery for food service, and kind of like creating things on its side so that you actually could create fractional work and fractional income as well as a convenient thing that consumers need. And so I come from a space where bring a product, a program, an idea to market is what I did for a living. And when I left the corporate world in 2006, and I left because what I realized is it was probably my best time. I thought about going on my own. And I will say, early in my career, I didn't know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'm a total accidental entrepreneur, but I was doing all these huge, big, impactful things and doing them with what I call complex team dynamics. Okay, so when you're bringing an idea to market, even if you only have one or two people that you're working with, even if they're fractional, in a company, obviously you have way more resources. But whenever you're bringing an idea to market, you have to communicate and align a lot of people's perspectives, tasks, goals, etc. And even though I was a marketing strategy and brand executive, I was the executive vice president of one of the biggest companies in the world. I realized when I became an entrepreneur that the same principles and foundation applied. In fact, even more so as an entrepreneur, because I had less resources. I had less money, time, and most of all, energy to bring my ideas to market. And I found that was a big problem that I was seeing in the entrepreneurial world. And then I was in masterminds and conversations, and people would ask me like, how are you doing or getting things to market? You identify even as an introvert. I always have. And I said, it's because I know how to use my time and my energy better than most people because of what I learned when I was an executive. And so that's really the beginnings of why this book became the book I decided to write first when I was entering what I call my author era, my thought leadership era, this era of being able to take a lot of my earned wisdom and putting it in a way that most people could access. Because, working with me is not available for everyone. And so I wanted to make sure that, again, as I'm entering this era, I turned 50 last year. And at the time of this recording, I turned 51 yesterday. And I knew that this was the decade where I wanted to write at least 4 books based on my master models, team being one of them. So my master models are brand, time, so team, identity, messaging, and experiences. And so that's why this book was first.
Well, happy birthday for yesterday. And
thank you.
We're fellow Pisces sisters because it's my birthday later in the week.
Hey, happy birthday.
Look at that. Thank you very much. I'm not yet entering my author era, but maybe I'll wait till I'm 50.
Yeah.
So something that you said there that I think is really important to call out is you've been in this world, through your corporate career. You've been an entrepreneur since 2006. You've had all these experiences. You've had these rich conversations. You've seen what the people are doing well, what's not working out for them. So everything that you've pulled together in this book, this wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to write a book about this and, 6 months later it's done. It's taken you years to collect the data, the evidence, the wisdom, be in the circumstances to bring that thought leadership together. I think sometimes it's easy for us to look at people who we see as experts and think, oh, that's happened so quickly. And, actually, when you connect the dots going backwards, you've spent your whole career learning this.
Correct. Yeah. And even writing a book, which was my big idea that I wanted to bring to life, I used my book to do that. And so I used my book to write this book, if you will. And it always looks good on the finishing side, right? To the outside world. But I want everyone to know, because I've worked with people like Oprah and Steve Harvey, big, personality media types, all the way to, everyday business owners in my institute. And I can tell you that it's no different. It's just that the spotlight can be a little different, but the actual work involved is not very different. It's just a matter of, are you using the right model? And are you really aware of your own ability to muster the energy required to bring great ideas to life, especially if you're like us? And in fact, the statistic, and I will say, I wish I had the actual percentage with me, but I don't have it in front of me. But it is a fact that most quote unquote successful people, especially in business, identify as introverted, not extroverted.
When I first moved into this niche about 5 years ago, I remember writing a blog post about this and literally listing off all of the people, especially people that were very relevant in, say, the last 10, 20 years, Zuckerberg, etc. Many of the tech people, many of the innovators, other people that, if we look back through history, have done great things. And it's very easy for people to think, oh, well, I can't do that because I'm an introvert. And it's like, well, no, really, you can do this really, really well if you manage your energy. And as you say, if you understand your strengths and how to bring them to the team.
For sure. And it's basically industry and niche agnostic, meaning, I always tell people like Mark Zuckerberg or anyone like that, Steve Jobs, they started where all of us have, which was an idea, right? That they were, ideating and talking someone's ear off, like in Zuckerberg's case in college. In Steve Jobs' case, he was a couch surfer on his friend Steve Wozniak's couch. He was functionally homeless, basically, but he was really sharp and smart. And he had all these ideas and he decided he wanted to make this huge company. But many of us don't want to do that. We want to create a business, a lifestyle that fits what we envision and is best suited for our own leadership type. And so I just want you to know that's why it's very important when I teach, when I share, when I help people bring their ideas to life, bring their programs to market. I'm like, stop thinking like it's like, this 5-step system in order to make it happen. There really is no such thing like that, but there is a framework. There are models you can use to give you the right thinking so that you take the right action. And that's really, really important.
I'm glad you mentioned Steve Jobs because he's known as such a visionary. And I think this is a great time to move into your leadership types and explore how that looks, because I can't imagine him in any other role than the one he played. He was born to do that. Can you imagine him trying to fit himself into somewhere else in the team, like doing some strategy or behind the scenes? It just seems so strange to think of because he was so natural at what he did, right? So tell us a little bit about the leadership types and how that really does fall with our personalities.
Right. So, in the book, my book is sectioned basically in 3 parts. I call it navigate, motivate, and communicate. So the navigate part is about the idea, like, is the idea that you have that you want to bring to life worth pursuing? It doesn't mean that it's not worthy or valuable. It just means for you, is it worth pursuing? Because we have a million ideas a minute, right? That are running through our heads, including right now. Like I probably have 25 new ideas that I could come away from this conversation. So that's the first part. So when we talk about a Steve Jobs and we get into the leadership types, why that's important is your leadership type, which is the second part of the book, which is what I call the motivate track, is how not just that you motivate others, but first and foremost, how you motivate yourself to make ideas happen. And a lot of books on productivity, team, time management, these types of things, they focus on like you being separate from the team. Like you're the visionary and then everything else is for the other people to do. And then yet there's a conflict of doing that because there's a lot of communication breakdown, et cetera. And I'm like, yeah, the root and the research basically shows that you're the first unicorn on your team and always will be, right? When you hear that question, hey, I get it a lot. Hey, Jen, if you were to start over again, what would you do? I would say first I need to look at myself and ask myself, what idea is going to motivate me to tap into my most, what I call unicorny energy that will help me restart, right? And so what the leadership types are about, there are 3 core energies that all of us have inside of us. I mean, it's rare that you don't have at least even a smidgen of at least one of them. And they're called the visionizer, the strategizer, and the mobilizer energies. Now, these 3 energies are energies and they are roles. They are not people. So what I mean by that is if you have visionizer energy naturally, because you talked about Steve Jobs and he had natural visionizer energy. Okay. And the Visionizer energy, their number one thing that they care about, that truly like turns them on. And even if they're so tired and they are exhausted, they muster the energy for, and those are their ideas. They are idea freaks. They love their ideas. They have galactic thinking. They see a future that no one else can see as easily. And because of that, their energy allows them to work on it, speak about it, etc. So when we even talk about introverted, Steve Jobs was also an introvert, but he appeared extroverted when he spoke about his vision, right? That's Visionizer energy. Strategizer energy is the energy of results. And what I mean by that is if you have a high strategizer energy inside of you, you care about the outcomes. Okay. You see the end game and you know, like the big rocks or the big milestones that it's going to take to get there. And so if you have that energy, which I do, my highest energy is strategizer energy. I see an outcome first, and then I go, okay, I see that outcome is worth doing because I have a high propensity for it to work. And so that's strategizer energy. And then there's mobilizer energy. And mobilizer energy is motivated by accomplishment. And accomplishment is different than results. Accomplishment means doing, finishing, closing loops, can master detail and precision, and definitely wants to close their laptop and make sure no loops are open and that they're inbox zero in general, if you're a high mobilizer energy. So those three energies put together, there are, if you calculate it by the three others, it's 9 different types. So there's the VV, the VS, the VM, the SS, the SV, the SM, and the MM, the MV, and the MS. That just means you have a top energetic strength and a secondary energetic strength. And the third energetic strength, and it is a strength, by the way, instead of a weakness, is the one where you go, that piece of it I'm missing based on the task at hand, based on the idea that we're bringing to market. So that's what the leadership types are. And then we can talk about how they work in a moment. I know that you said that you took your assessment that's inside of the book, which we call the Unicorn Leadership Type Assessment, or you'll hear me and others refer to it as the ULTA. Like, what is your ULTA? So I'm curious, what's your ULTA?
It makes so much sense with the way you describe it, because my ULTA is MS, a mobilizing strategizer. And the reason that makes sense is early on in entrepreneurship, I really struggled with open loops. So my background before being a business owner was that I was an air traffic controller. So I went to work for 17 years, put a headset on, controlled airplanes, took the headset off, left the building, and I could not work. It was a closed loop. My shift was finished. So then I come to entrepreneurship, and I remember one of my first coaches said, Emma, you've got to be okay with always having something on your to-do list, because that is entrepreneurship. And and that was a really profound thing for me to think about. And I was like, wow, my whole career, I've never had something waiting on my desk for me, because it had always been headset off, come home, be totally switched off. So I'm not surprised that mobilizer is my highest one when I look at that.
Well, that's fascinating. Oh my gosh.
Isn't it? And what I found very fascinating, I don't know how common this is, but my scores were very, very close in range. So I'm 88 mobilizer, 87 strategizer, and 85 visionizer.
Okay. Well, I bet the visionizer energy was what gave you the courage to leave a very stable job that also scratched your high mobilizer energy itch. Because here's the thing, you had a job where lives were in your hands. So you had to be precise as well, which the M's really care about. The M's care that nothing breaks. The M's are like, not just what they're called mobilizers, they're the mechanics. It's kind of like, hey, we got to make sure that, no pun intended, the plane is actually operating and working so that we can land it, right? And those are just like your business. Your business is launching like a rocket or a plane up into the air, and you want it to land safely and make sure that it gets done, right? And so, but the V in you is what probably made you find the courage to become an entrepreneur. And so that's why I also love that you are an MS, because one thing that I hear from a lot of people who really like score high on the M or the S range, not as high on the V, always say to me, oh my God, it's such a relief to know that you don't have to be a V only to be successful. And I'm like, oh yeah. I go, the V's, back to the introverted perception that like people who are in the spotlight are more successful or they get things done more or whatever. That's not true. The veil is that the V's naturally look like that. That's why it appears like that. But that doesn't mean that they're more successful as entrepreneurs. It just means that the V's who understand the concept of unicorn team in my book were better at getting and rallying the right people around their energy to get things done. So I think it's fascinating because I have another client slash friend slash like expert, amazing woman. Her name's Maeve Ferguson. She actually lives in the UK. And when she found out she was an MS, she told me, she goes, I cried for joy because here I was thinking I was broken in entrepreneurship this whole time. Like, oh, everybody talks about the visionary. And I go, no, here's the thing. We're all visionaries, but we're not all visionizer energy driven visionaries. Okay. And when she heard that, I was like, that's why you get ish done faster than anybody else. Your challenge though is, cause she's an MS as well. I said, your challenge is that you don't blow past what's happening next. Because the V's know what's happening next. And so you're so busy down here in the work and you feel safety in that you don't sometimes see that the vision is there and sometimes it blows past you. And I always say like, that's why you have to be in rooms with visionary people, but not be delusional like they are. You're going to be like the anchor in the room. And instead of wanting to be the person who's like, oh God, I wish I thought more like her or him, you'll go, oh, I see why he or she is seeing that. And what's cool is you get to derive from it what you need for your own business. Instead of it being like, oh, I should be more visionary. I should be more futurist. No, you should surround yourself with more futurists. And that's the difference. And that's when you're going to see like things are going to explode for you. And that's one of the biggest gaps in entrepreneurship that I see, this level of understanding how it works. I like to say, I like to show you, and I'm sure this really stokes your MS. I like to show you how the sausage is made, right? I'm an S, so I'm big on revealing how it's all done because I see the whole ecosystem. The V's don't see the ecosystem. They just see the galactic idea happening and they are stubborn in that. The S's go, oh, I see your vision. And I also see what it's going to take to get it done. So here, let me show you the whole thing. And then the M's are like, ooh, idea, I'm on it. Like, let's get it done. Right. And so you see now, if you start to think of it that way, it changes your priorities and it makes you work on what I call the right hard things. Because the biggest problem right now, especially all of us getting pummeled with pressure, friction, and noise from all kinds of places, is that you need to know that effort is going to be required, but what's burning us out is working on the wrong hard things. We need to be working on the right hard things because then we know that our effort is moving towards a direction that gives us that scratches that itch of our highest leadership type. So again, if you're an MS, you want to know that the work that you are doing is meaning something. Like it's actually like you're closing the loop and you want to like look at it 2 weeks from now and go, whoa, I now know that the 25 things I got done these last 2 weeks actually moved in the direction. I didn't just do them because they were on a checklist. For me as a strategizer energy, I want to know if I worked on these 25 things, do I see and smell the money? Because that's one of my superpowers. I can smell the money. I can see where like something will monetize or not. And then if I'm a V, I want to see that my idea is coming to life in a very tangible way so that the regular people see that my alien thinking is not as crazy as people think. And so I'm an SV. So you're an MS. I'm a SV. I'm a strategizing visionizer, which is called the mastermind in the Ulta. And Steve Jobs, our friend in the room right now, he's a VS. You know, he's a visionizing strategizer. And when you read my book, you'll see like how I outline every single leadership type. And again, you can take what I call like the scratch assessment inside of the book, but you can also take the assessment. We have a full diagnostic that Emma Louise is referring to that she was able to take and download it. There's a 51-page report that tells you all about you and how you can embody this.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I've got it right in front of me now. I love my report. And I love having this. Obviously, it's very detailed, but I love having this chat with you and hearing your description of it as well. And there are two, as you were talking then, there were two examples. I'm like, oh, I feel so seen. One is I can get stuck in the minutiae. I can get stuck in the details. And I remember being in a program and the coach kept saying to me, think brand. Stop looking at your skill set or this framework or this piece of technology. And she had to keep saying, think brand, think bigger, look at the brand as a whole. Because it was very easy for me to get like, oh, what am I as Emma Louise doing today? And, what are my tasks? And she's like, that's not how you're going to grow it. And that is still in my head now, 3 years later, like think brand, think brand. And I'm thinking of a client I worked with who would definitely be a visionizer because she had like you say, galactic, the grandest vision. She could see it all. And I asked her to put down a very basic business plan and she could not do it.
Yeah, she's not qualified to do it.
No.
She's not qualified to do it. And that's why that's what she needs. V's, well, all the types all of us have ego, right? And all of us also have this like default behavior, right? And that's normal. But the opportunity and you being her coach, an advisor in that moment is, the M's can create the structure for which like the V's can thrive. And in my book, which is the third part of the book, is the communicate section. So there's navigate the idea, motivate the different types of people you've got to work with to make the idea happen, including yourself. And the third is the communicate piece is like, how do you get a V to get focused on details? You don't. What you do is the best thing they can do is have M types interview them and collect it, put it in a document that then can be mobilized. But a lot of times V's, they're even told, be detailed. No, they can't. They can, but they'll get burnt out. They can, and that's where they get stuck and they stop and they reach this, what I call next level, next devil moment of like, I can't scale past this. I can't like move past this. It's because they'll never be able to do that well. It's like asking, what is that? Like, is it Dr. Seuss? I don't know, who says like, if you try to like make a fish, try to climb a tree, they'll always think they are a loser. Right. And so I love that you bring up that point because all of the energetic types like annoy me. And I say that with love because they're going to annoy you, right? They're going to annoy you, but that's the friction that makes you valuable because without friction, you're not needed, right? And so it's like, I love that you said, always think brand. That is my whole thing, right? Like to me, brand is everything is brand, meaning everything is brand is everything. And that's very S of me because brand is everything. It's the full ecosystem. It's like, think of yourself as like, how do people see you? How does the audience see your content or your offerings as valuable? That's the brand, and brand is strategy. And if you come from the corporate world and you came from aeronautics, and the the airline industry or the transportation industry, if you will, like if you think about it, it's all about processes that allow people to even trust the brand, right? If you're helping land planes, they don't even know who you are, Emma Louise, but you are critical to safety, right? And that's also what I was trying to say in the book is like, it's not just the shiny V's that are making this happen. We put visionaries on a pedestal and they're also being taught that they should feel like that. And I'm like, no, you're part of the entire idea coming to life. Yes, is important. It's a very brave role that most of us are like, ew, I don't want to be in the spotlight. Most people don't want to be in the spotlight. That's what's funny. But when you're an entrepreneur and you think people want to be that, just because that's the lens that you're seeing everyone through. But I'm like, no, actually, Emma Louise, you're doing a podcast right now, which means you are publishing something that is visible, that is public, right? And you are an introvert. You're a mobilizing strategizer. makes so much sense. I'm like, yeah, you're using this platform because it works for your energy, right? But other people who probably listening to you are like, she's so brave to have a podcast. How could I do that? They're thinking that. And you're like, oh, I figured out a platform that actually works for me. That's why I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And so it's this level of thinking that I feel like entrepreneurs don't have the quality of this conversation you and I are having right now in a room. They have listicles. They got listicles. They got to like publish content, infinite content. I'm like, oh my God, if I am not a content creator. I hate publishing content. That's why when people are like, you're everywhere. I'm like, yeah, because I have a strategy and a system for the things I don't want to do. And then I work on the things that I really know I can contribute to making that system work. So I love that you're bringing this up. And I hope people are hearing the richness in this, in the nuance and the discernment you need to be like successful to the next level that you really want to be.
I was thinking nuance exactly as you said it, because you referenced aviation. There is no industry that requires as much trust as aviation. And you have to trust that people are doing their job correctly, but you are not qualified to do their job and you don't understand it. The pilots don't really understand what the cabin crew and the flight attendants are doing, but they have to trust they're doing it properly. They don't understand what the refueler is doing or the engineer, but we all have to trust. And then the air traffic controller, it's crazy.
Let's talk about something. You're bringing something up that I feel is so juicy. That's I'm getting hyper about it because my strategizer brain is getting turned on. I want everyone to think about like Sir Richard Branson, who is like the ultimate, what I call VV. He's a VV, he's called like the visionizer. He's a galactic, right? Even his
literally
space thing. Virgin Galactic. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like this galactic thinking, right? And he even, if you follow him and you listen to what he says, he's like, I didn't even understand how a business worked until I was 50. Okay. But he already was a billionaire. Okay. Now, of course, he also comes from money. I always like to present the truth because I always like people to hear like, it's helpful when you got a good start, right? Because he got a good start in that way. When he thought about the brand, he was in the brand of like, what is Virgin, right? But to your point, for Virgin Atlantic to fly across the pond, if you will, right? And even get acquired by Alaska Airlines when it did, was it Alaska? I think so. Yeah. His job was to be like, let's talk about Virgin. Let's talk about the brand. Let's talk about all the different parts of the brand. That's the outside. And he's perfectly suited for that because he's a VV. But to your point, the rest of the team needs to be a bunch of M's with a dash of S because plane safety, I always tell people, I do not want a V in charge of flying my plane. I don't want a pilot to be dreaming of their future while they're flying the plane. Okay. I have no desire for that. I'm okay if the cabin crew is a little bit more entertaining and, all of that. But I do not want that person. I don't want air traffic control to not be M's and S's, right? And so I always tell people like, this book also helps you realize and appreciate your job if you work in a company. It helps your team, even if you have a small team, a fractional team, to actually go, oh my gosh, for now, I am in the right place, right? I am actually working with the right person. And I am inspired that I can bring this value to the team. Do you see what I'm saying? But I think that's why even when I was in the corporate world, when everybody wanted to be on my team. And it wasn't because, let me tell you, Emelise, it wasn't because I was like the most jolly. Let me tell you, the S's, I would say of all the types of like the most intense because we see the whole picture and it bothers us when things go wrong. So, but what people loved is when they were on my team, we would win. Like we would always win. And don't get me wrong. It wasn't that we didn't fail. It didn't mean that we didn't make mistakes, but because I had such an energy of winning and results, which is I'm an S. People love you on my team because they would get bonuses because we would like get our things done. Like it was based on those results. And so even though sometimes the work was hard and it always is going to be a little hard, right? It was like, whoa, the effort is paying off. Right. And that's why I think people also, when they work with me now, they are like, I'm so glad you're keeping me refocused on why we're here. Like, what are we up to? Why are we doing this? Right. And you don't have to take away your dreams and you don't have to take away your love of tasks. Like in your case, Emma, Louise, but you need to understand it, because then you'll make better decisions, you'll communicate better. And success is based on decisions. That's ultimately it. And that your ability to fail faster is also really important. I had no idea about this. Like, I'm obsessed now that I know this about you, that you were an air traffic controller. Cause I think too, that's kind of like a big deal right now in the zeitgeist in terms of safety, at least where I live in the United States. And I feel like it is so juicy that you are that. And now you're an entrepreneur and a business owner, and how you have to face who you are every day because you were so good at that. You had to be good at that. People's lives were in your hands. And so your opportunity with V being your third is that you don't lose sight of your vision, that your vision is important, that it did call you to do something different, and that your audience and your team are relying on you to understand the details. They actually trust you to know the details too. And that's why they choose you. And so when we think about our brand and our leadership type, our personal brand anyway, it's like, you want people like the M's, that's their greatest desire, is to be trusted. Like, oh my gosh, please trust me. Like, don't worry, I won't let you down, because I'm not going to make sure that every T is crossed, every I is dotted, that every door is closed, that every loop has been put away. And, that's why people would work with you, right? Whether it's the audience or a team member. And you should lean into that, because that's really, really important.
It's so fascinating. And, the visioner piece, if we think about, there are things that we just take for granted now as normal that didn't exist. Like you say, we're having this conversation however many thousands of miles away across Zoom. And other than my slightly glitchy Wi-Fi, it's amazing. For people that are maybe a little bit younger than us, Virgin Atlantic probably just seems pretty normal. They've always been there. It was a big deal for an airline that was not American or British Airways to cross the Atlantic. I think only Freddie Laker had done it before in a low-cost realm. What Richard Branson did was, it was all over the news. People were shocked. British Airways was up in arms. How can he get a license to cross the Atlantic? He's not the flag carrier. It was a big deal. Now people are like, oh yeah, Virgin Atlantic. It's just, part of everyday life.
Right. But in order to make those things what I call status quo, innovation had to happen. And so the other thing about your leadership type that I want you to be thinking of as you're listening to Emma Louise and I right now is, you are naturally innovative. Okay. In fact, innovation is innately human. And we do live in a world where I say we're all engaging in the triple A threat and opportunity. And the triple A threat is AI, automation, and the algorithms. Okay. And so we're also, especially if you're younger, or even it doesn't matter at what age you are, you're going like, okay, where do humans belong in the era of, what's next for all of us? And I'm like, friends, humans, earthlings, okay, that are here. I need you to realize that we now are more important than ever to creatively reimagine and innovate whatever the world looks like next. And if we default and delegate all of that to the machines and the technologists, because technologists are only one type of innovator, right? They are creating, but it could be you who helps me keep my coffee warm. There are things I'm going to tell you. You can buy on Amazon a coffee warmer, okay? But they all suck. I ask me how I know. Okay, I have tried every single one because I'm a coffee head. Like I am very much, and I don't drink coffee not just because, in fact, I don't drink it for caffeine. I drink it for pleasure. Like I love coffee. It gives me a sense of nostalgia from my parents growing up. And anyway, I am annoyed because I'm like, can somebody build a better mousetrap, right? To keep my coffee warm and tasting good and not going stale. And that's an example of an innovation. Doesn't seem like a big deal to you. I guarantee you soon, somebody's going to make the best potential one, just like the Keurig, made you get instant coffee through a little pod, before, and again, call me old, but it's like before instant coffee tasted awful, right? It was
like freeze dried in a jar and so bad.
Just gross, right? But we tolerated it because the only other way that you could make coffee is the old school, like, with the hot press or as things evolve, that's why we still need humans, right? And so your leadership type is you embodying the innovator, the natural innovator that you are to create your own life path and deliver things that have an exchange of value that people will pay for. And so that's also why this is so important more than ever, is that you get, wear your unicorn horn proudly. Like, don't get caught up in what I call this donkey behavior that is being, frankly, perpetuated out there. Like, when you are getting pummeled with content, that's donkey work. That's not unicorn work. Unicorn work is like the right content delivered to the right audience and that you have the energy to deliver it. And so this is so important right now. I can't even tell you. And because I'm an S, I know I can see what's going to happen if we don't start doing this. And I just tell people, like, I'm going to be fine because I'll figure out how to create my little outcomes that'll work for me. But I'm worried, and I do mean worried. I am worried about the future of creativity and innovation, and that how, like, your personal brand in relationship to your business brand are more important than ever. But how do you do that without burning out? You understand your leadership type and you work around that instead of trying to like become a Instagram influencer, unless that's what you want to be, right? Like, I have no desire to be an Instagram influencer. I have no desire, but yet people are like, but I see you on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, I treat Instagram as one of the vehicles that takes my message, but I don't look at it as like the end all be all for me. I go, oh, great. That's just a message. That's like, it's like a plane, right? But the plane doesn't work unless people are in it, meaning, right, the company can't make money if the plane doesn't fly, that if it doesn't have a majority of people in the seats, and it has to be safe, right? And so there's a part for all of us to play in this new world of quote unquote innovation and technology. And not to forget that you are a natural innovator yourself, especially as an introvert. Introverts come up with cool stuff. Like, introverts are the reason we have cool things. That's the bottom line. I mean, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison, like Dyson, like, who thought that a vacuum could be improved? But now, he's a billionaire who made vacuums better because his technology was suction, right? Like, seems pretty like easy to think, oh, like, yeah, of course, it should have better suction. Then my vacuum will work better. Like, see, and you see how like it started with a very simple idea. Like, oh, you know what? It's silly that I have to keep repairing or maintaining my vacuum. What if we didn't have to do that as much? And then it became a premium brand. I mean, I don't know about you, but before I would have never spent $600 on a freaking vacuum, But now, of course, I have Dyson in my house because I want my house to be clean. I want it to be fast. I want it to be pretty, right? So again, I just think that we forget that most of the things we admire today started with a simple idea.
It's funny you mentioned James Dyson because I saw a Rich List earlier on, and it was the top 6 of what I presume was the top 10 richest people in Britain.
Yeah.
And guess what? He was there. He was number 4, I believe. None of them were inherited family money. They were all innovators and entrepreneurs. And that was the point of the post. The guy was saying, look, everyone thinks, oh, the rich were born rich and it's okay for them. No, the top 6 richest people in Britain innovated their way to that money. They created something.
And that's what we call it. That's what I mean by new money, right? New, fresh opportunity. And it's easy to get inundated even with the media and the news. I'd say, because since I live in the US, if this is getting crazier in terms of like, oh, well, the rich are, they just want to keep all their wealth to themselves, et cetera. And I would argue that's pretty true, but I am also rich. And I mean that. I mean, I actually have created an 8-figure business. I live in a home. This is not to brag. This is me like just telling you all that the work I write about, I do because I didn't get a handout. I wasn't born wealthy. I came from actually immigrant parents from the Philippines and I grew up in a little tiny 2,000 rural farm town. I mean, I literally like lived on a farm where we had cows and chickens and like, and so for me, when people go, oh gosh, like you're involved in all these cool things, I go, yeah, because I just started to realize that you can design your future. You just have to decide that's what you want. And I love hearing that Dyson, he was an engineer, right? He's just an
Yeah,
engineer, a geeky
yeah.
dude. I guarantee you, I don't know because he didn't take the Ulta, but if I thought about Dyson,
He
I would
should.
think, yeah, I think he's a MV. I think he's a mobilizing visionizer or a VM. And what I mean by that is like he had a vision to make an everyday appliance like a vacuum work better. That's very M thinking. It's very like simple yet potent. M's are very like simple tasks, potent results. Like, I see that. And then he tinkered because he's an engineer. So he just started tinkering and taking apart his vacuum. And my husband's like this. My husband is such an MV. Like he'll just take things apart and then he kind of like puts them back together again to work in a different way. Like he takes like old telephones and then he turns them into lamps. And then like, it's crazy what he does. We have chickens in our backyard still to this day. I live on a vineyard, and he took my son's bunk bed and he turned it into a chicken coop. And then it went viral in these and I'm like, I could never do stuff like that, Emma Louise. I don't, that's just not my strength and my energy. I'm like, I don't know how you even saw that. Like, how did you see his bunk bed turning into this elaborate chicken coop that, I'm not joking, guys, has been shared over 500,000 times.
What?
And and my husband is not rarely on social media. He's just in these little groups, and these chicken people, these niche people are so obsessed. So they're like, can you give us the blueprint? Can we pay for that? And he's like, what the heck? Like, I didn't know people would care about this. I'm like, babe, you need to turn that into a blueprint and sell that for $27, and it's like crazy when we don't realize that we start to get so inundated in like all the noise of all the influencers and important people, right? The shiny, glossy people. And I'm like, first ask yourself, like, who are you? What's your unicorn leadership type? And what ideas really fit that energy? I mean, I can think of the UK because I love the UK, FYI. Like, y'all, besides Canadians, are some of my favorite people. I have so many friends and clients and colleagues. And like, look at, right, even with everybody has controversy, but I will say, like, how many times did she get rejected as an author? And now she's a billionaire, right? Because a lot of what she did was like, she wanted to be a writer. She knew that, right? She knew she wanted to be a writer. And the more she wrote, which is a very M thing to do, writing is M, right? That's why people are like, oh, M's must just be secretaries and admins. I'm like, no, M's are detail-oriented humans, and it can be of anything. Like Dyson as an engineer, Emma Louise as you formerly being an air traffic controller and now being in the business that you're in. J.K. Rowling, mobilizer, writer, right? I say Martha Stewart is an MV. Okay, she is a mobilizing visionizer. She has made her brand and her businesses grow because she demonstrates her work through, like, whether it's making a beautiful home or cooking a delicious recipe, or she's demonstrating it. That's why she's natural in front of the camera, because she's like, let me show you how it's done. M's love the process. They love to show the parts of it. And so it's kind of like, it doesn't matter what you are. It matters that you know what you are and that you're embodying it. Then you're going to be as successful as you wish. And also, like, I call die happy, like die feeling fulfilled and purposed, because you knew that you were working on the right things while you were here. So, yeah.
It's so funny when I think about how I operate in the business, how I operate with team, with clients, all of these things. I actually did a solo series on the podcast a few years ago. I did 8 episodes in a row without guests, and I called it How I Think About ... So it was like how I think about mindset, how I think about social media, how I think about ambition, how I think about being an introvert. And I just talked through my thought process. They are my most downloaded episodes to date.
Yeah.
And I have more people reach out to say, that was fascinating, thank you, than I think any other episodes.
Yeah. People want to know how you make the sausage, if you will, right? In your own business factory, right? And that's a strength of yours, you being a high M, right? That you're happy to show the details. You're happy to discuss, all the pieces. And what's also fascinating about you, I bet, is like, if you said, that's where you probably have said, like, this is where I've had to put myself in rooms where I need to be more thinking about the future, that's why I chose a specific coach to help me, because I knew that part of me needed to be coached out of me. right? Or instigated in a way so that I was, making sure that whole thing worked. But at the end of the day, the reason you're also choosing that is because you understand that it's a missing component. And M's understand when a missing component is there, it makes them nervous. They're like, I need to know how to fill that gap because I don't want it to break. The S's, I always say like the V's always think they're right. The M's are nervous about being wrong. And the S's know what's right and know what's wrong. That's that kind of thing. It's like, so that's why, and I always tell people everyone needs an S in their life in some kind of way, because the S is what I call the strategic glue. It's the glue between the big galactic thing that you want to get done and then the execution steps. The S is what kind of goes, what's worth working on. And S's, FYI, are some of the hardest energies to find because most of the most successful S's in the world they're usually thought leaders. They are running big initiatives at big companies and making a lot of money doing so. I mean, I had no reason to leave my corporate job. I was making $400,000 a year in 2006, and get my bonus, as I said, because that's what I was like, I'm going to get my bonus. I had a corner office. I had a lot of prestige inside of the company. I was a very trusted executive. And I had a parking spot that had my name on it, like Steve Jobs did. And I thought I was super important. And I say, like, when I became an entrepreneur, I was like, whoa, you want to talk about confronting all of my fears and all the trophies I had kind of collected up into that point. And entrepreneurship is really cool and confronting because it made me go, am I really made for this? And I realized, the biggest gap in the industry is S. I really understood that. And that's why I've been able to be successful. And when I say that, when you're listening, please don't hear like, I wish I was more S like Jen if you're not an S. No, the thing is like, listen to podcasts like this, read a book that I wrote, like learn from those sources if S is your third energy. You see what I'm saying? Instead of it being like, I'm not going to be successful. No, that's not true. Actually, anybody, it doesn't matter what your leadership energy or type is. Everyone can be successful. And it's just that you need to know this, because once you know this, then people are going to magically want to work with you. Your team is going to start to read your mind better, which we all desire. I tell people, like, I use this work for my family. This is like not just about business. There's no such thing as really a business problem. Everything can be Googled or Chat GPT'd now, or there's some type of expert that knows something about it. But if you're not dealing with yourself and the leader that you are inside of your life and your business, you'll always keep working on the wrong things. And as an introvert, that's really important because we have to reserve our energy.
Jen, I feel like we could talk for hours about this and never run out of great examples, but I am mindful of your time. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom. I'm going to drop all of your links in the show notes. So whether people want to join your email list, buy the book, take the altar, connect with you some other way, they'll be able to find everything there in the show notes. But as you are a self-confessed introvert, before we wrap up, I'd love to ask you, what's one of your non-negotiable practices to making sure that you own your energy so you can keep performing as a strategizer?
I know that it sounds cliche, but I really use my models to get work done. And that's why I'm excited that I can share it with all of you now through this book, because I just don't work on things that don't matter anymore. I really don't. I'm not saying everything that I work on works or is successful, but I know why when it's not successful. And therefore, because I'm focused, I'm obsessed about working on the right hard things and eliminating the rest. And so I'd say that I think that, that makes me go, okay, this effort was worth it. And then also I bake in what I call solo days for myself. That's just a ritual that I do, which is at least once a month, if not more, I take a solo day from everyone, including my family, my dogs. I mean, I have 3 kids, a husband, 4 dogs, and all the things. And I will just go to the library. I will have a beautiful brunch on my own. I will just dream and think and doodle. And it really restores me.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being with us today. And thank you for writing the book. I loved it.
Thanks, Emma Louise. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling expanded to what's possible for you, motivated to take action, and inspired about how you can start to own your energy. I share even more tools and resources on my Introverts Only email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the Ambitious Introvert products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of introvert-friendly inspiration. Sign up now at theambitiousintrovert.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes. See you next week.